That breath you just took, that's a gift. Cherish it, for they are finite and few. Breathe in, breathe out. No worry too deep, just life testing thee. Keep your head down, keep pushing through. Your time is now. You have it all inside of you. Breathe when it gets tough. Breathe when you've had enough. Breathe when you need a shift. Breathe and just take it all in. This life is a magical gift. Don't be afraid to slow down, to take a breath, to find your feet. Challenge yourself. Set goals. Believe that what you do matters and take control. Breathe because you're you. Breathe because you're enough. Breathe that worthy breath. Breathe in every fiber of your being and be. It's not what's on the surface, it's underneath. Now take a moment and just breathe. This piece is just about breathing, taking a moment. You know, sometimes we find ourselves no longer grounded. We're in a panic. We forget that life isn't here forever. So every time you take a moment to breathe, you check in with yourself, you check in with your surroundings, and you're present.
Yo, what's going on? This is Jason Goldberg. Just finished my interview on Live Through Love with Ruben, and this was such an epic interview. We talked about really how to live through the lens of love, how to depersonalize, how to not take things so personally. We talk about some controversial stuff as well, so stay tuned for that. And we just had an overall blast. So check out the episode. I know you're gonna love it.
So, the whole premise of everything, you know, it's taken me a long time to get here. I went to school to be a doctor, then I fell into real estate, and then I fell into finance, and then I became an artist. But I was always an artist.
Yeah.
But you're in a similar age as me. No one, when we were kids, are like, go become an artist. It wasn't the same. It's not creator economy now. It's not TikTok. It's not everything. Right. But here I am. I'm doing it. I ventured out there and I have to do it. It's something that's part of me.
Yeah.
And it's all kinds of creating, not just on the wall or a painting, but I've distilled it down to live through love, right? Yeah. Nike, just do it. Ruben, live through love. Yeah. And then the premise of that is we operate at love, we operate at a fear. Mm-hmm. Everything fills under those two pillars. How would you describe live through love?
Well, I mean, you know, here's the thing. I don't remember who said this. It may have been Don Miguel Ruiz who said, I think he said it. Everything's either an expression of love or a request for love, right? So me at my worst, anybody else at their worst is at worst trying to get love, right? So if everything is viewed through the lens of an expression of love or a request for love, I can have more compassion for the people that I want to choke, and also have more compassion for myself when I do things and go, oh man, I'm beating myself up. I'm such an asshole. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done something different, and to come from love for myself as well. So it's everything, bro. That's why I love your message. I agree with it 100%. Not that you needed me to, but
I love that. Okay, we're done. That's it. No, totally. So a lot of times we say no one innately is doing something to you on purpose.
Right.
And human beings are just trying to do their best, unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath.
Right.
But that's a different thing because emotions, and that's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
But like someone cuts you off on the freeway, you know, the old me is like, fuck you. Let's like honk, like slow down. Like, really, what are you thinking? Yep. Now it's like, you know what? Oh, hold on. Love is, I hope they get there safe.
Right.
You know, maybe they're rushing because they're about to get fired. Maybe they're late to a funeral. Who knows what's happening? Or an amazing sale for their favorite brand.
Right.
We don't know. But do you think they did that to you on purpose? No. And most of the world is not doing things to you on purpose.
Right.
And these last 2 years through the pandemic was some of the most testing times on us believing like they're doing that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say too, especially, so I'm somebody who I grew up with so much anger. Like I was a kid that punched holes in walls. I would chase people in traffic if they cut me off. And then I was a total wuss. So if I caught them, I'd be like, oh, fuck, now what do I do? Like, I'm not going to do anything. I just like, my anger just took over because I took everything personally. Everything was a personal affront to my value and to who I am in the world. But especially for men, anger is a more acceptable emotion than fear. right?
It's encouraged.
It's encouraged, right? Because in some ways, anger is an action-oriented emotion. Fear, we retreat, we do nothing. Anger, we take action. It's just not usually very healthy action. So when we look at that, your message still works, because even in the anger of somebody cutting me off, it's really, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that my value is not being seen by this random person that cut me off in traffic, because if they knew how valuable I was, they would have never cut me off in traffic. And so it's just this misconception that everything is personal. If we could depersonalize things that are happening in the world because they aren't personal, we would all be so much happier. I said this before, that if we could eradicate the phrase, how dare they, from our vocabulary, we would all be so much happier.
Wow. Yeah, I agree. Totally.
But wait, did you cut me off? Was that you on the 405 that cut me off last week? Because I was, but we also don't want to do the spiritual bypass thing. This is the thing I hate.
No, this over woke, over authentic.
Yeah,
that's a whole other.
People cut you off in traffic and they go, they didn't cut me off. They liberated me from my speed.
No.
Like, nah, bro.
That
it's not at all, right? But it is noticing in that moment, like, what is it? Who is it that's reacting to this thing, right? Because if I am a being made of love, if I am ultimately always approved of and loved and supported by my friends, my family, the universe, whatever it is, if I know all that to be true, then what's at risk with this person cutting me off? And it's hard in the moment to do that. But the more we can kind of slow that down and notice what's really going on, the easier it is to kind of step back a little bit.
We also got to think about how many years, depending on your age, did it take you to program yourself to do this?
Right.
And now, let's just say Ruben said, live through love. How many reps does it take to unprogram the past habits and start working through it? I say it all the time. This is really hard. This is an active way of choosing to love. This is an active lifestyle. This is not easy.
Yeah.
And it's doing the reps. You go in the gym to get stronger. You put in the reps. Same thing here. Mental reps, practice reps, and everything. It's
the soul gym. I mean, you go to the regular gym, you got to go to the soul gym too. And this is another thing too, I think, that a lot of people, including myself, will think that when you're making a transformation like this, like living through love, then it's like, okay, I need to practice this on the big things. Like my wife did something deceitful and I need to practice on that. Sure. But like, let's start smaller, right? So there's a reason that baseball players swing around 5 baseball bats when they're on deck. So when they drop 4, that one's super light and they can swing it better. So like, let's focus on the littlest things possible. Things like cutting people off in traffic or anything where your preferences are not met. The only reason we suffer is because we have preferences about life and concepts about life and ideas about life and how life should be. And when those things don't get met by reality, then we suffer, right? So if I don't have any preferences for my life, then I can actually experience life a lot more through love, like immediately, naturally. I wouldn't have to try to experience life living through love. It would just be what's left over if I get rid of all my preferences.
And then preferences are like expectations.
100%.
If you don't have expectations, you can't be let down.
Right.
But we could start deeper. It's not smaller. You're saying smaller, but it is bigger and it can be smaller. Wake up every day, look in the mirror, brush your teeth and say, hey, Ruben, today I love you. I'm choosing love. Let's walk through the world that way. And every step you take, you start looking at it that way. And yes, you can flub up and yes, things can happen, but reset. It's like eating a bad meal. You just went and ate 800 pizzas and Twinkies and whatever. And you're like, oh my God, life is over. Let me phone in the year. Or you could say, you know what? Next meal, I'll circle back around.
Right. And that's exactly it. It becomes a data point, right? As opposed to a diagnosis, right? We're so good at that. I know I'm so good at that. I'm so good at diagnosing myself. I remember my mom, who I love to death. She's a Jewish mother, so she can hear everything we're saying, even if she doesn't listen to the podcast. And I remember growing up with her. And when WebMD came out, it was one of the worst days of my life. And there was a time, I think, that at one point she thought she had testicular cancer. Because of the symptoms, I said, Ma, that's not how it works. You can't possibly have that. And so just this kind of notion of everything being out to get you, everything being dangerous, like that's a thing to pull back from too, man. It's just like life is way simpler than we make it.
It is. And I always say humans are meaning-making machines and we love to overcomplicate everything. Yeah. Right? I mean, simplest example, as a man, a woman touches you. Oh my God. She likes me. She wants me. Oh my God, let's go. This is the one. It's like, that didn't mean anything. It might've been just like, hey, I'm trying to make eye contact with you and keep it at that. And it's conversation. So like we make a meaning. Oh, what does that mean? Mercury in retrograde. That's a whole nother thing. Like when people tell me that, I'm like, I can't. This is why your life's falling apart for the next X amount of time? No.
I like Mercury retrograde because it's an easy way for me to filter out who I'm going to be friends with.
There you go.
It makes it very simple.
It's
No,
a
I'm
new
kidding.
t-shirt.
It's a very good t-shirt. No, I really, the spiritual bypass thing I think is a big thing. I think the depersonalization is a big thing. And I think that a lot of people are scared. I'm sure I've had this as well. There's a vulnerability in living through love, right? Because if you truly live through love, there is a belief that you could be hurt. And it's possible you could be. Mm-hmm. You could also be hurt if you live through fear.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen anyways. But so for you, like I'm curious for you, how do you live from love even when there's a possibility that you could get really hurt by doing so?
Great question. No, easy. It's simple. It's yes, I've been hurt. Yes, I can get hurt in the moment. Yes, I will get hurt again. But knowing that I'm going to get hurt again, why am I going to stop living life? We have one life, and the longer I'm living this life, the less life I have to continue living through. Yeah. So we can look at that in everything. If I take a risk and start a business on my own, it can fail. Yeah, but it could succeed. We don't have crystal balls. Right. If I'm in this relationship, we can go the distance or we can not go the distance. I can get hurt or I can not get hurt. Are you overly optimistic or overly pessimistic? I think it's really how we look at, is the cup half full or half empty? Yeah. So that's really how I look at it. And I'm a very optimistic person in general. And I was always the guy jumping off the cliff. I'll figure out the parachute on the way down. Many times it opened, many times it didn't.
You're still here.
But I'm still here. I'm still walking.
And that's how it's always been. There's nothing we've ever been through that we haven't gotten through because we're here having this conversation now. So the evidence tends to point in our favor. And I love what you said there because I was married. I was with my ex-wife for 12 years. And so a lot of people at the end of the marriage, we were talking about it being a failed marriage, right? Or that, in general, if you get divorced, it means you had a failed marriage. Yeah. I also went to public school for 12 years. And when I graduated high school, I didn't say I had a failed education experience. I had a complete education experience. Those 12 years of going to school were what I needed to then move on to the next phase. So even noticing that getting hurt or something being the end or being abandoned, I hear that a lot from my clients, like their fear of being abandoned. Guess what? Everything abandons us at one point or another. It's the way the world works. So noticing that like even having a situation where you get hurt or having a situation where somebody leaves, there's nothing inherently bad about that until the meaning-making machine says otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't have an attachment to something failing or not working out being a bad thing, then it's just another historical data point. You take what you can learn from it, you move on to the next thing, which sounds like you've done over and over again whenever you needed to, which is beautiful. Yeah. And
it's just that period of healing takes longer. It's shorter. You practice. It depends. And there's this natural course. It could be 2 years. It could be 2 minutes. It could be 2 weeks. Yeah. But you want to talk about abandonment. So there's inundation and abandonment, right? To me, it's inundation is not a thing. Repetitive, like that's my thing. Like that's a trigger for me. Yeah. But on abandonment, I think a lot of the thing, it goes down to self-love. Are you abandoning yourself? Right. Because now you're putting the responsibility on someone to rescue you from feeling abandoned. And that pressure on someone else is really heavy in a relationship. Yep. You're going to abandon me. Don't abandon me. Like I'm holding on for dear life. And you could become a stage 5 clinger.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's you putting the pressure on someone. Flip it around and be like, wait, where am I not loving myself? And where am I abandoning myself?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. So what do we all say, or a lot of us say, we want to be unconditionally loved by somebody else, yet we put conditions on loving ourselves. So we want somebody else to do for us something we're not doing for ourselves. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's stepping back and saying, where am I putting conditions on my own love of myself? Because once that's figured out, then it's a nice bonus if somebody else brings that. It's not like it's a bad thing to get love and approval from somebody else, but it's an accessory to life, right? So if we're on the red carpet and we're like rocking some, Tom Ford tuxedo or whatever, like that's dope. And then if we have like some really cool jewelry or something, that's an accessory. But we wouldn't wear just the accessories to the red carpet. I mean, maybe we would, it'd be kind of funny, but we wouldn't typically just wear the accessories to the red carpet. We need like the actual, the suit. That's the big thing. So we got to focus on that. So for me, I actually have some of these conversations, like you were saying, looking in the mirror and saying, Ruben, I love you, and doing those kinds of things. And sometimes people think that's like hokey or something. It's been so powerful for me, man. And so one of those conversations, I remember I've had a massive weight loss. I've lost 130 pounds. And I remember there was this moment, it was probably, 5 or 6 years ago, where I had gained like 3 pounds. Like I got on the scale one morning and I gained 3 pounds. For most normal human beings, they go, oh, I guess I should have laid off the pizza and Twinkies. Like, and they go about their life, right? For me, it became an entire narrative. Oh my God, you're going to gain all your weight back. You're going to get back to 330 pounds. You're going to be depressed again. You're going to be suicidal again for 3 pounds, right? And I started beating. It's such a trigger. And so for whatever reason, I had this idea, this notion in my head to sit in front of a mirror, like I have like a tall floor, like, tall mirror, sat on the floor in front of it, look myself in the eyes. And I said this statement: Jason, I would still love you even if you gained back all your weight. Because that's my biggest fear, right? In that moment, my biggest fear was gaining back all the weight. And that some reason, or for some reason, gaining back all the weight means I'm no longer lovable. So by having this conversation, there's some very important words, the word choice in there, which I didn't know consciously I was doing, but afterwards, kind of looking back, is the statement was, Jason, I would still love you even if you gained all your weight back. The I would still love you, right, means it's timeless. And the even if means it's unconditional. And when I said that to myself, I broke down crying. But it wasn't a sadness crying, it was an acceptance crying. And so I use that anytime I have a fear of anything happening. It could be anything, could be in my work, could be personal, could be, romantic, whatever it is, that having that conversation with myself, so powerful.
I love that. It's like, I have an exercise in my book, and I tell people, or I've been telling people this for years: write yourself a love letter. No directions, no grammar, no nothing. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It could be, I love you, I love you, I love you. It could be, you're so fucking sexy. It could be whatever, or it's a full-on novel. Yeah. And actually one of the things I want to do on this podcast is have people write them, send them in, and I'll read them either anonymously or I'll say their name, and that be part of this. And that's how I want to continue to include people, because it's self-love. It's something that's not in this world, right? We turn on the TVs and it's S-curves and implants and you're not Kim Kardashian, or you're not this. And I've gone and talked to kids in school, and literally this little girl, because I showed a mural, I'm like, okay, this one says you're beautiful. What's keeping you from feeling beautiful? I just randomly had this conversation, and this little eighth grade girl was like, I'm not Kim Kardashian. And I'm just like, oh, this breaks my heart. And I'm not, it's not one good or the other. That's not what we're talking about here. And this isn't a jab at Kim. Yeah. But it's about what's the conversation and her relationship, connecting those dots that's going to keep her from ever feeling enough and beautiful. Right. And how do we have that? So that goes back to our relationship with ourselves. Use Kim to be like, I want to be a powerful entrepreneurial woman just like that. But don't say like, we're not going to look like each other. Right. At the end of the day, you're you. Be the most beautiful you that you can be, and accept that and move forward, and life's going to flourish. Yeah. Yeah. And for a lot of people, man, I really feel like, and for myself included, because self-love was not anything that was ever, it was never talked about growing up, but I never felt any sense of it. Self-loathing all day, every day, self-love, very little, if any. And it feels like nowadays, especially, self-love is kind of an act of defiance. Because for me to say and to practice self-love, I'm essentially going against the system that's telling me I need to do this to be successful, this to be attractive, this to be lovable, this to be accepted. It's an act of defiance. And just inherently, we don't want to defy. We're taught to comply, right? We're raised for compliance and permission and everything else in school, right? You come home from school and they say, did you have a good day? And what the parents really mean is, did you make your teacher's life a living hell, right? Did you comply or did you not comply? And so the act of self-love is really an act of defiance. And I think that's one of the reasons it's difficult for us. I think especially, I have a lot of female clients, and especially female clients that are moms. There's a guilt in self. And I don't think it's just a female thing. There's a guilt in self-love. Like, it's selfish to be doing things for myself, or I only deserve self-love once everybody else is taken care of. And that narrative, which I absolutely felt for myself as well, is just not a helpful one. So I'm a new dad, and congrats, I can relate. Man. Thank you. He's about to be 1 on the 23rd. No way. Yeah. Amazing. Cutest little dude. But that's a whole nother, I'll show you photos. Yeah, I would love to see it. But and now I can relate to many other things. But one of those things when you're talking about women and self-love and this act of guilt, because I'm big into fitness. I actually got a degree in exercise science. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, did a lot of training back in the day. And the conversation they would have is, I don't deserve this. I have to give it to my kids. And then same with fathers and different, like, I need to work my face off because I got to provide for my kids, but then you're not home. So like, you're missing dots in the sense of like your self-health, your mental health, and you being your best physical and emotional being, not having that and then being there for your kid. They absorb that. They know, like, mommy, you're not happy. And they start, they're not going to say it. Yeah. Or then your dad's like, I know you're working, Dad. I know you're providing, but you're not here. They're not going to be like, thank you for working and you weren't here. Right. There's this disconnect. And it's this whole, I see it also in financial planning. When I was in finance, people would not save, wouldn't put in retirement, wouldn't do wouldn't do anything. The minute they have a kid, max fund a college plan. Okay, but when you're 70, you're going to put all your burden on this kid that you put through college. And who knows what college is going to be like in that. So there's different ways that people do this, and they sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
But like my wife and I work on, we need to be the best us that will directly impact my child. It's not about sacrificing us for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so huge, man. I'm looking forward to being a father one day. And I think it'll be an incredible experience and to see this little manifestation of you in the world. And I think it's really important what you're saying. I remember talking to a guy who I was coaching one time, and he literally told me, I'm paraphrasing, but he literally told me, I'm working 90 hours a week in a job that I hate to show my kids that they can do whatever they want in the future. And I just slowed it down for him and said, I just want you to say that one more time and really listen to yourself. But in his mind, he's like, but if I sacrifice everything, they're going to be able to do whatever they want in the future. And what are they going to actually do? They're going to see, oh, well, I need to do what my dad did and sacrifice myself so that my kids can do whatever they want in the future. And it just doesn't make sense, but we've been so programmed that that's the way it's supposed to be that we do that. But I think a lot of people are becoming a lot more awake to this. And they're noticing, I think the pandemic helped a lot with that. There's a lot of things the pandemic helped with, but the whole great reset and everything else, and people really slowing down and saying, why am I doing what I'm doing? Whose dream am I living? Whose rules am I living? Whose burden am I still carrying? Like, these are all really important things to look at, because they're very rarely our dreams, our burden. It's all things we picked up along the way.
Whose life am I living?
Whose life am I living? It's huge. It's so huge. So it's an inquiry that I think we should all be looking at, and it's not like a one and done thing. I have a friend who every 6 months, he reassesses all of the major parts of his life and says, am I still a hell yes to this, or am I not? And if he's not, he figures out a way to transition. And if he is, I'm in for 6 more months.
Amazing. It could also there could be a flip side to that. Right?
Yeah.
Because that could become I have to hell yes everything. And then if I'm not but you could be in a moment of like, well, I'm not hell yesing now, but then you're back to hell yesing.
It's true. Well, I guess that depends also on the quality of your state of mind in that moment, right? Yeah. So if you've just watched, or if you haven't eaten in 12 hours, that's the worst time to jump on Uber Eats, right? Because you're going to order a feast for 12 people, right? But that's why they say go to the grocery store right after a meal, because then you don't buy all the crazy stuff, right? So knowing where we're coming from, there's a big difference between what we're looking at and where we're looking from, right? And so instead of trying to always manipulate what we're looking at, we want to look at where we're looking from, because that changes what we're looking at. So I think it's good to notice, like, am I in this place of like despair and upset and fear? And then I assess whether I'm a hell yes to something, or do I feel like I'm in a place of peace and equanimity, and I can actually look at this thing objectively and really feel into it and see what's serving me and what's not in this situation.
So set yourself up for the exercise, like any adventure you go on.
Yeah. Set and setting are important, whether it's going on a trip, literally, figuratively, metaphorically, MDMA, whatever it is, whatever trip you're going on, psilocybin, ketamine, whatever you're doing, because we're in Southern California and they sell that stuff at 7-Eleven. But you should always look at set and setting. So whether you're thinking about life decisions and things like that, always look at set and setting.
So what's the lens? I always say, inspiring others to see the world through the lens of love. People are like, what is that? What does that mean? It sounds so. What is looking through the lens of love mean? Right? You know, sometimes I say a lot of different things are considered, but it's not fairy tales and gummy bears and Hallmark moments. It's, let me put these glasses on and let me really look at this, because you turn on the TV and you're just staring at fear. Yeah. And so you're like programmed now to view fear. The pandemic, horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. But there is so much amazingness that came from it, so much good that came from it. Yeah. It's also a human problem, right? It affected every human on the planet. It didn't affect me here in LA or vice versa, or whatever the case is. And we're all with different walks of life. So we can take it in different settings. And one of the things I did, I lost a lot of money right up when it started. I finished a project, pandemic went on lockdown, and I lost a whole bunch of stuff. Like, do I can sit here and be, woe is me, I'm a victim. Let me look at the TV. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Let me put 800 masks. No, I'll do what I need to do to be a good citizen, but let me shift. What can I do? How can I change? What's next? Where can we move forward? And as long as we're moving forward and looking through the lens of love, and we're not talking about rainbows and unicorns, right. It's still doing the work. It's like, let me assess what's happening. Let me look at this presidential debate and take in what's really happening here.
Yep. To me, it's just looking through the lens of love is just having a more open-hearted perspective about life in general. the beautiful thing about the pandemic, and it sucks that it took the pandemic to do this. It's the same thing that happened in 9/11. 9/11, you've never seen a country more united, right? It took 3 weeks before everybody hated each other again, right?
Yeah.
But like that brought people together. And so there's the spiritual talk of like, oh, we're all one and shared consciousness. There's your example of how we're all one. The pandemic showed us we are all one. We are all having a localized experience of the experience that everybody's having universally.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that wasn't still enough for people to see that we're all one in the way that we often talk about with consciousness stuff. But the way, if we can look more at the fact that we're all one, then there is nothing that you could say about me that I couldn't find to be true about myself, right? You could say that I'm a murderer, and I would look and I'd be like, well, I've killed bugs before. That's true. You could say I'm a rapist, and I could say, I've probably forced my ideas on people that really didn't want to hear them before, right?
Mm.
So if I can hear all those things about myself and say, I can see where you're right about that, it's the end of the fight.
I mean, we really want to talk about this. I go on opinion rants all the time.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like, I don't know what I can or cannot say,
Right.
but what I'm seeing more and more and more is that we're not allowed to have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not allowed to have, or we're not holding space for us to have differing opinions and debate and conversate.
Right.
Or else we become mortal enemies. It's like you, this, me. How about this is what I believe? That's what you believe. Awesome. We're still two human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have the convo. Let's see if we become better people on the other side. We don't have to agree, but we can now learn more about each other,
Right.
and we can move forward, and we could still walk on, be friends, and cheers and have a drink.
Yep.
But now it's like you say something, you're not allowed to think that way. And if you do, sorry, you're canceled. Get out of here.
Right.
Like, we're not friends anymore. Like, bye.
Mm-hmm.
But that's creating more divisiveness. That's separating humanity.
Yeah, a ton. It also has a major effect on creativity and innovation. And I had a conversation on my podcast with Courtney Granberry, who's a Wilhelmina model, and her boyfriend, Matthew Russell, who's a part of the Cheat Codes EMD, electronic music group. And we were talking about this stuff, and he brought up the fact that the cancel culture is actually making artists not push the envelope and not innovate and not be as creative because they're afraid of the backlash of it all.
I agree.
I mean, you're an artist. I mean, have you experienced that? Like, are there things you've wanted to create and you're like, you know what? I'm not sure if this is a good time to create that.
Yeah, or I'll put things out there and one side says something, the other side says something. I'm like, yo, I'm in the middle uniting both sides.
Yeah.
Take it as it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten some replies like, but it
And you
is.
will.
Even, I was saying earlier, like, I'm like, I want to open this up more, open it up, get more wild, get more out there and just see what happens. And just remind people, like, I'm coming from here. Let's talk about that now.
Yeah. There's something interesting too, especially online, that's been a shift in perspective for me, because I'm fairly lucky. I don't get a ton of trolls, but once in a while I get them. Most recently, it's been about my hair. I don't know what it is. I did a video that kind of went viral on TikTok that was about anxiety. And there's people posting. One person said, like, your hair gives me anxiety. And I responded back to it and said, it's on my head. How do you think I feel? Right. It's, you can have fun. You can play with those people. But what I really got in my head is that these are typically people who don't have an outlet to be heard. And so this place is at least a place for them to be heard. So if I have created a place for them to feel heard and seen, then them trolling me is actually a part of my mission, right? I want everybody around me to feel seen and heard and understood, and like they have a place to actually speak their mind. So if that happens to be about my hair, fine. You still help me do my job.
That's exactly living through love and flipping it to the lens of love, right? I mean, because other ways people say haters gonna hate, embrace your haters. Oh, you're getting hate? That means you've made it.
Right.
Or yada, yada, yada,
Right.
and all these other
Right.
things. And that's a way to just kind of sugarcoat it, but not really embrace it. Now
Right.
you're embracing it, letting them be seen and heard, and
Yeah.
maybe they stop.
Well, the funny thing is, almost every single person that's done like a trolly kind of comment that I respond in that way, they respond back and go, you're cool, bro. You're cool. You're cool.
Yeah.
It's because they're like, cool, I was heard. It doesn't even matter what I said.
They're
It's the
just
fact
trying
that
to trigger something
That's
and
it.
get into a thing.
That's it. They want to feel important. They want to feel seen. And like, you can feel important and seen by triggering people and polarizing them, but you can also feel important and be seen by mobilizing people, right? And that's a big thing. I think nowadays there's a fine line between polarization and mobilization.
Mhm.
But if we share things in the world to mobilize people instead of trying to polarize people, I think we'd be a lot better off there too.
Dude, I agree. It's just your first instinct is to instigate,
Yep.
polarize, and
That's true.
put my agenda on your agenda.
That's
right?
it. That's it. I'm okay with that. I think we can both handle it.
Mhm.
We got it.
I like it. JG,
Double R.
triple R.
Are you a triple R?
Yeah.
Wait, what's your middle name?
Ramiro.
Damn. Bro, that's so dope. I have such an affinity for alliteration that I'm super jealous that you have triple R.
Oh, there you go.
Damn, such a badass.
Yeah. My son's a double R.
Okay, that's good. So at least you're keeping it. You're keeping it. He can't have the triple R. I mean, there
No.
has to be some separation between church and state.
I agree. His middle name's Love.
Oh, is there? Okay, that's perfect.
So he'll walk into a room when his voice drops. He'll be like, "My name's Remy Love." That's it. He's winning life.
Done.
We set him up to win.
Good move. Very good move.
So we're on this battle. We're on the same playing field, doing it in our ways. What are 3 things we can do? The 3 takeaways that people can just be like, I can start now.
Yeah.
3 takeaways of live through love. What's the mindset that they need to just go mind to heart and just be like, I can do those 3 things and practice it every day?
I would say number 1 is to notice when maybe you're feeling a little closed-hearted, right? If you're getting angry, you're getting upset, you're getting frustrated, chances are your heart's a little closed. And so I'll picture that in my head. Like I'll picture like a metal lockbox around my heart. And I'm like, okay, now I know what that feels like. And then I'll kind of close my eyes and visualize the metal box opening. And I see how that feels. And I'll close it again and I'll notice like my body gets tenser and then I'll open it again. And I notice how that feels lighter. So just kind of noticing if you're feeling you're in a closed-hearted or an open-hearted space, I think that's a big one. The second one is practicing that depersonalization as much as possible. That there's no way that it's about you. It's, if you go to somebody's house and you hate their house, it has nothing to do with that person. You have maybe a trigger that it reminds you of your uncle's house and he was a pain in the ass when you were growing up, or it's different than the way you would decorate your house because of your own preferences. Like just noticing that your preferences have nothing to do with somebody's personal bias or anything else. They're not trying to attack you. Mm-hmm. They're not out to get you. They're just expressing their own thing. So depersonalization is huge. And I think also this last thing is like really noticing that people are trying to experience love. They do it sometimes in healthy ways. They do it sometimes in unhealthy ways. And when I say they, I mean every single one of us, including myself, do it in unhealthy ways and in healthy ways.
Oh, yeah.
So if we can just notice that everybody's doing the absolute best they can to get their needs met, then maybe we don't have so much stress or anger or anxiety or judgment around people around what they're doing.
And not putting it on someone else to meet them for me.
100%.
And the depersonalization, the thing I like to say it a lot is like, we can't offend others. We can take offense, which is the action of taking offense and being offended. Yeah. So that's another act of giving away power.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the depersonalization, that's a big one for me because I take everything personal.
Well, you should.
Not as I used to.
No, yeah. But what's funny? Just the last thing I'll say about that is that I remember when it was election day, when Trump got elected, when Obama was going out of office. And of course, it was all contentious and everybody's yelling on both sides. But there was one phrase that was used on that day in January, actually, after the election. One phrase that's used every election cycle that doesn't seem to have any triggering quality to it. It's not emotional. It's the term, the phrase transfer of power. Right? They said today we have the transfer of power from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. It's very objective. It's a transfer of power. And so when I see that somebody's getting the best of me, I notice, oh, that was just a transfer of power. Nothing emotional about that. I literally just transferred my power. Now, something we weren't able to do in that situation that we can do here is I can also transfer the power back. Right? So just noticing that very unemotional thing. Oh, am I transferring my power right now? Cool. I'm allowed to transfer it back.
Which is completely different. Am I giving this away or am I taking it from them?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Words mean so much.
They are, man. The words you speak become the house you live in. That's what Hafiz says. And it's a really beautiful quote and it's really true to me.
Well, I live in the house you live.
Yes, you do, brother.
Thanks
yes, you
for
do.
joining.
Thanks for having me here, brother.